Good afternoon. I hope you had a good lunch. Thank you for taking your seat. To switch off your telephone. Right. The 20th century has been tragic for Ukraine. 17 million Ukrainians have died violently during the 20th century. What is even more tragic is not that people die in war or in conflicts, but they die for utopic ideas on reconstructing the world. Immediately after the invasion of Ukraine, all the presidents of our 30 members federation decided to come to the assistance of the Ukrainian people. In the same time, FIBA launched a campaign, a fundraising campaign, that was called #AllTogetherForUkraine. Poland, Romania, Moldova, Slovakia, and Hungary were the first countries bordering Ukraine receiving an enormous amount of refugees. In a few months, over 8.1 million Ukrainians have taken refuge in Europe, in Western Europe, while today an estimate of 8 million Ukrainians have been internally displaced. 90% of these refugees are women and children. The Ukrainian economy has decreased by 50%. 4.8 million jobs have been lost. 90% of the population could be affected by poverty. That means that 90% of the population could have an income inferior to $5.5 per day. In September 2022, a delegation of FIBA went to Ukraine to assess the situation. It became very apparent that the challenge faced by the food banking in Ukraine was too big for the existing operation, and dramatic operational issues needed to be solved immediately. Do I need to say that I believe that this is the first experience of food banking in a high-intensity war? The board of directors of FIBA approved a strategy that would allow for a safe spending of funds channeled to Ukraine, a development of the infrastructure which was necessary to handle the new volumes that were required. And during our visit, we identified dedicated and willing partners. Dmitro, whom I have the pleasure to introduce now, has been immediately identified as a natural leader. He has our full trust, and I'm very honored to introduce him today, but also to introduce all his friends through him who are true heroes. As things stand today, we have collected a little more than 7.2 million euros. 50% have been spent on the neighboring countries and 50% on Ukraine. We need to obviously take cognizance that the food insecurity in Ukraine will last for long, even after the war will be over, which we all hope is going to be soon. We want to carry on helping Ukrainians, whether inside or outside their country, because after all, aren't we all brothers and sisters? Dimitro.
Thank you. Queridos amigos y colegas, en nombre de
friends and colleagues, on behalf of the Ukrainian Federation of Food Banks, I would like to sincerely thank the Global Food Banking Network that invited our Ukrainian delegation to this event. As responsible for the Ukrainian Federation of Food Banks, is to me a great honor to be present at this meeting. On behalf of my country, after 1 year being on the cover of newspapers and magazines all over the world, the name of my country is Ukraine. And the reason it's there on those newspapers is the war. Even though I'm here physically before you, 10,000 kilometers away from the explosions of the missiles and the sirens, I still hear them. Because my soul, my heart, and my mind are in Ukraine. I still hear the voices of the millions of Ukrainians who are in a difficult situation, who have been forced to abandon their homes, or they have lost them forever. They have suffered physically and mentally. They have seen death. They have seen death's face, and they have paid the high price of losing their loved ones. All of them need help. You know what they have in common? They're all hungry. Our team has been working for over 7 years to provide these elements and food to vulnerable people. The idea of food banks in Ukraine, in spite of all we did, I have to admit that nobody prepared for a full-scale war. So the magnitude of the challenges that we face now, even with martial law, this is creating huge problems and that are not comparable to what we face in times of peace. Ukraine is on the brink of a humanitarian catastrophe. According to a review by the UN Office for the Coordinator of Humanitarian Affairs of the United Nations, in 2022, the number of people in need of humanitarian assistance rose by 2.2 million people in January of 2022. That's over 6.6% of the population of Ukraine, and rose to 17.6 million people at the beginning of 2023. That's approximately 40.1% of the population of Ukraine. According to some estimates, Ukraine has 45 million people. In 2023, the number of people who would need humanitarian assistance multiplied by a factor of 6. At the beginning of 2023, almost 1 in 2 Ukrainians needs humanitarian assistance. Unfortunately, this trend continues. As you can see, unfortunately, the need for humanitarian help in Ukraine is something that's immeasurable. That's why the objective of our work is to help to cover all the needs in the most efficient and quick way. But it might not be possible every time. That's not a reason to surrender or to give up. On the contrary, it's a challenge that makes us keep moving forward in spite of all the obstacles. So I would like to say a few words about our organizations. The Ukrainian Federation of Food Banks was founded in October 2022 with the help of FIBA. We are a young organization. We had to move very quickly in spite of this in order to respond to the conditions and to the times we're living in. The Ukrainian Food Banks Federation, founded in October 2022, covering 12 regions with 29 charitable organizations. So 29 organizations, 6 partners, and 5 donors. Our organization has an extensive network of 29 charitable organizations that operate in 12 regions of Ukraine. And these are regions with different levels of security, in which people have different levels also of food insecurity, and they need assistance. I would also call to your attention the fact that we have centered our work in occupied regions of Ukraine and on the line, the border. The volunteers of our organizations have to go and provide packages wearing bulletproof vests and helmets, and they risk their own lives. I am convinced that they are really, truly the heroes of our time. And I have the honor of working with them. Our partners in Ukraine, the Olena Zelenska Foundation, is a charity organization led by the First Lady of Ukraine. We have military organizations that are providing humanitarian help to the citizens of my country who are forced now to endure war. Children have to grow up in a minute. Adults have to start defending the future. We all had to realize the war is the best way to show who's a friend, who's an enemy. That's why I want to thank the European Federation of Food Banks for being not just our loyal friend, but also our source of support. I would also like to thank Jacques Van der Schrik, the president of FIBA, for his visit to Ukraine in August of 2022. He didn't only visit the office of the president and the first lady and the ministry, but he also saw in person, witnessed in person, the tragedy in the populations around surrounding areas. And Mr. President, you have helped us see a future for the food banks in Ukraine and the strength to continue forward. Thank you, sir. War times need extraordinary solutions, even for the simplest of situations. To be able to face all the challenges of life during a war, we have to maintain friendly relationships and ask for help from administrations and armies. How does this happen? We received a call from the owner of food warehouses who told us, come to pick up the items that you need that are up for consumption. Of course, this is, of course, what the food banks do, but we still needed the permission of the military supervisors to do it. But we faced criminal liability without that. So these structures are the ones that give us access to the front line and to the occupied territories. Thanks to the help and the protection of the military, we're able to deliver food to people who are under fire near the front line, to the people who most need our help. Now, a few words about the results of our work. The amount of product delivered, 483 tons, 27,000 units or food kits. The number of people who received help from the Ukrainian Food Banks Federation is 94,500 people. The number of meals delivered, 3,465,000. I'm very thankful to all of those who are helping Ukraine at the most difficult period in its history. That's why I mention our achievements. I want to say that these are our joint results. We've achieved this together with the support of FIBA in the framework of the campaign All Together for Ukraine. We provide humanitarian help to Ukrainians in the form of a package of items for a family, food that's purchased in Ukraine. For each cent that we get from donors has a great value. Let me say a few words now about how we gather the products that we put together in those kits. We have first we go by national and international standards to design the combination of products, which allows us to offer a balanced mix of products according to modern nutritional guidelines. In the second place, we support the local consumption culture. We offer products that our beneficiaries want. And third, in spite of the war, we work with local producers and we provide local products. We distribute local products. And that has another positive effect of supporting small and medium-sized local companies that are facing a very difficult situation. We always look for the best balance between price and quality. It's nice to see that Ukrainian producers are offering us big discounts or free deliveries when they realize that these products are used for humanitarian help. The war in Ukraine has lasted so far 389 days. And I can tell you a lot about each day of our work. The trips of our volunteers to the regions of Kherson, Donetsk, of the bombarding warehouses, of the large psychiatric hospitals in Ukraine that were treating 1,000 patients before the war. When the fight started, 300 more patients were appearing every day in the Kyiv region. There was no time to lose, but you cannot tell about a war. You have to see it. So I want to tell you how we see it through the eyes of our organizations. is different, is difficult for us, but we're not ashamed. We're diversifying. We're working, evolving at the fastest speed possible, thanks to your constant help and support, the support of the whole civilized world. In 2023, we're planning to open offices of our federation in those regions where there is the most need. This will allow us to provide humanitarian help in the regions most affected in Ukraine in a more efficient way. As I said in the beginning, Kiev and Mexico City are separated by thousands of kilometers, but to all the people of goodwill, we're joined by our desire for peace and our daily fight for a world free of war and hunger. Ukraine right now is at the forefront of this fight, and we are the ones who are keeping our backs. Glory to Ukraine.
Well, I would like to thank Dimitro for a brilliant presentation. Can you imagine that the Ukrainian Food Bank Federation in September or end of August, in the beginning of September, did not exist? This is what has been achieved with true solidarity, determination, and I would think a clear sight of which way we needed to handle this situation. We probably made mistakes because we perhaps we didn't have the privilege of experience in this field. But the goodwill, the dignity of the Ukrainian people, you have seen the distribution. Everybody takes his package with no problem, no argument, nothing. The dignity of the Ukrainian people who are suffering above words is something that, as far personally I'm concerned, I admire, and I think it's also part of the success. The enthusiasm. Have you seen how many young people are in the warehouses helping to prepare the packages? So I think Ukraine has a lot of challenges to face, and they will need our assistance for a long time. But they are showing the way. They are paying the price to defend our values, and not only the price on the battlefield and for the civilians who are massacred in these uncalled for attacks, but the mental health, especially of those children that I have seen in not in Mariupol, but in Mariopolis, which is a little container village built in Lviv to take in the refugees from Mariupol. The children there, I've seen children hungry, but also children of 10, 11, 12 years old who do not speak anymore because of what they have lived. So thank you the donors, thank you to everyone, and thank you Dimitro for an astounding job that you are doing there in extremely difficult conditions. I would like now to introduce Michael Oko, who is the Vice President Communication and Marketing, who will take over. Thanks. Please welcome him.